Good afternoon and welcome back to the Workbench. So today I thought I'd do a quick little video on something I did yesterday, in fact, but didn't take a video of at the time because I just didn't feel like it. So I just thought I'd do one now just to go over what I did, and someone might find that interesting, hopefully, if they want to do the same thing. So what I'm talking about has to do with this computer here, obviously, this Acorn A3020, which is a bit of retro nostalgia. As I remember playing around with these when I was a kid in primary school, and was always quite fascinated by them, and yeah, never really got to sort of do anything with one much at all because it was always limited, you know, for school use. But I found this one recently, a few weeks ago, second hand, and I bought it. Came with a monitor as well, and a couple of discs for some drawing program, I think. I haven't looked at them yet. The monitor works, but there's like a image problem. I think it's a vertical issue. I don't know, something. The screen wobbles a bit. I don't know if it's just a dirty potentiometer somewhere, or a cracked solder joint probably, or something, or a faulty electrolytic. I don't know. It looks like probably an easy fix, so I maybe might do that later. But at the moment I've just got it hooked up to this monitor here. Obviously that's not this. That's Linux, but I will demonstrate it in a second. Anyway, the other problem was it came with a monitor, but it didn't come with a mouse, and this thing uses RISC-OS, which is quite an old thing from mid-90s, early 90s, I think. But you definitely need a mouse to use it. You can't really use it just with a keyboard. So I had to get a mouse. Now, the genuine original mice, as I looked on eBay, were about $100 or £100 or some ridiculous cost for just a mouse, which I thought was completely ridiculous. And so I had a look in my pile of spare parts, and I came up with this one, which is just a little simple 3-button mouse. Now that's an important thing to note though, because the operating system on this basically requires 3 buttons, because the middle button is used quite extensively for the menus, like the context menus, similar to right click in Windows and that, but in this case it's middle click. So if you don't have a middle button, you basically can't use the computer properly at all. And if you have a mouse with a scroll wheel that has a button in it, well, it'll work, but your finger's going to get pretty tired because you're going to be clicking that scroll wheel many times, so it's just annoying. So this one had the 3 buttons, and this came with the first Windows computer I ever bought, and it's kind of useless for Windows in a way because it just has 3 buttons. I mean, you want a scroll wheel for modern stuff, and yeah, it wouldn't really be much use. But for this it's perfect because it has just 3 plain buttons, which is what this thing expects. Now the only thing with this is this mouse was a PS2 mouse, designed to plug into a PS2 port on a modern computer, obviously, but that's not what this expects. This uses a different style. Now, I don't know if you can see this here. This is the plug I attached to it. It's a 9-pin DIN connector, which is quite obscure. Basically what it does is it just takes the rotary encoder signals for the ball, which this uses, and it just basically takes the analog waveform from the infrared sensors on the rotary encoders, turns it into a square wave, and sends all 4 signals individually. And you also have 3 signals for the buttons, because there's 3 buttons, so that's 7 signals in total, and then you've got the ground and power, obviously. So you need 9 wires. So you need a 9-pin DIN connector and a 9-pin cable, 9-conductor cable, which is quite hard to get. It took me a while to get something that was actually thin enough. The first cable I had a look at was about twice as thick as this and wouldn't have even fit in the mouse, so totally hopeless. But I managed to find this on Farnell, this black stuff. It doesn't really fit with the whole thing. It would have been better if it was white or grey, but oh well, I mean, it works. It was kind of the only option I had. But hey, I mean, yeah, it's just a mouse, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, it's basically, I had to make some modifications to this, which is what this is all about, basically. The mouse obviously has its own little microcontroller, or whatever it is, ASIC or something, built in on the board there, which encodes all the button signals and everything into the PS2 format for a modern computer. But like I said, this doesn't use that. It just uses the signals directly from the encoders and all that. So I had to remove that chip took everything out, and basically the original design of the original mouse that would have come with these just basically squares up all the signals with a 7.4 HCT 14. So I just built my own little sort of mod board with one of those on and wired it into the original PCB, and I'll show a close-up video on that afterwards so you can see what it looked like. Basically, yeah, so it was just a case of just removing all the original components apart from the switches and the rotary encoders and all that, and then just adding in a little board on top and just taking all the stuff there. So I asked around on the internet before I did this. I found a forum called stardot.co.uk, I think it is, which is all dedicated to Acorn computers and BBC Micro and all that kind of stuff. So pretty good resource. I asked around on there, and someone gave me some good photos of an original Acorn mouse, and I was able to draw up a schematic from that and find out how it all worked. And yeah, it's a pretty simple design, so it's easy to copy, and I just built everything into this mouse here, so it works very well. So I'll just turn this on and I'll demonstrate that it does in fact work, which is the entire point. So I'll just switch this over to VGA, and if I switch this on, I have to just reset the settings because there's no CMOS battery in this. It's been taken out a long time ago. I need to replace it. I've got one here which I'll replace it with. Yeah, anyway, I'll do that later. Also going to upgrade the RAM. It's only got 2 megabytes of RAM, and you can get 4 megabytes, so I've got some RAM chips on the way. But there you go, it comes up pretty fast, and the mouse does in fact work. I suppose you can probably only see half the screen on here, but yeah, anyway, should be good enough to show what I mean. So you press the middle button, and that gives you the sort of context menu thing. So yeah, you kind of need that. You can invert the screen for fun. But yeah, if you don't have this middle button, it's basically completely useless. So yeah, we got this thing. So yeah, it's an old classic computer. I think the highest resolution is 800 by 600. I think it's running at the moment. And yeah, the OS just boots off 2 ROM chips that are soldered onto the board. So not much that comes with it. Obviously, you load most of the programs through the floppy drive. I may in fact install some kind of USB floppy emulator thing. I've seen you can buy those pretty cheap on eBay, so I might put one of those in it or something. There's no, fortunately with this particular one, there's no Ethernet module with it. Some companies did make a third-party Ethernet module that you could install, and also coaxial Ethernet and other stuff, which I might have been able to get, some sort of file sharing, so I could just copy things directly over. But unfortunately didn't come with one, and they're quite expensive because they're so old and rare. So getting one is probably not very likely, but $20 for a USB floppy drive emulator is probably a lot better option. It does have a hard drive in it actually, surprisingly, which isn't showing up because I've reset the CMOS here. But if I go and enable that, it does in fact have a hard drive, which I think was about 500 megabytes, which is the yeah, what does it say? Hard drive. So it says 500 megabytes. I think that's the maximum size that this file system can actually support per drive. So the drive might be physically bigger than that, but it may not have, it's limited by the system. So I don't know. I can't actually remember. I did look at it, but I didn't write down the model number. But yeah, unfortunately I don't know if you can actually copy programs. I don't know if I could take the hard drive out and copy programs directly to it and then put it back in. I don't know if there's an actual file system driver for this, ADFS, for Linux or Windows or anything, so that might be another option though. I'm also going to do a clone of the disk as well, just for backup purposes, but yeah, there's not much on it, but yeah, anyway. Might as well. I mean, it doesn't really matter because all the system, the operating system, is actually in ROM, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually need the hard drive, but it would be nice to use it. But anyway, yeah. So that's that's this thing going, and yeah, so enough talking about that. I'm going to open this up and show you how I did. Oh yes, one thing, Ethernet module, it doesn't have one. It did come with a MIDI module though, which is quite useful if you want to do that sort of thing. I don't know if I'd ever use it. I don't expect there'd be much software available for this system that would be very useful or even still available. But who knows, maybe something to play with. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's about it for this. There's not much else to say about it. Like I said, it's got a hard drive, which is really nice. Otherwise I would have had to put one in myself, which saved me from bothering to do that. But otherwise it's seems to be working quite well. I don't know if I can, how much I can show here. These are some of like the basic apps that come with the come with the thing. So yeah, you get a basic solitaire program and all that kind of thing. But there are definitely a few classic games and stuff that was made for these, which you can still find some on the internet. So I'm definitely going to download a few of those and see if I can get them running. Might be fun. I don't know if all of them would necessarily run on this monitor here. I think some of them do require a CRT because they do kind of apparently the screen timings in that, the refresh rate in that is not exact. They kind of push the boundaries of that a little bit or go just over it because the the hardware limitations of this. So I think one of the video modes runs at about 56 Hertz instead of 60 Hertz. So an LCD will just complain and just turn off and say no, we can't display this. But an old CRT won't really care because it's all analog circuitry. It'll just run slower, but it's not going to worry about it. Whereas with this, it's all fully digital, so it expects the exact 60 Hertz frequency or whatever. So it's running fine on the desktop here, but some games, require more colours, so they have to put the resolution down or change the refresh rate a bit, so that doesn't always work apparently. So I may indeed have to try and get the original monitor working properly to do things like that, which should be fun in itself. I mean, it might be just a pretty simple fix, hopefully, but we can have a look at that later on. Anyway, like I said, this video in particular is about the mouse, so now that I've finished waffling on all about that, I shall cut to close-up of this mouse and the modifications that I've done to it, and we can see how that works. And then that'll be about it. So yeah, I'll just shut this down and then we'll have a look at that. Alright, so let's have a close-up look at this mouse and see exactly what I did to it. So here's the 9-pin DIN connector. I had to forego the back shell on this because it would have been far too big to actually fit in the back of the computer there. It was very thick, it was about this big. So I just used heat shrink over the back. Seems to work quite well. Someone else who did a similar project to this, although they made like a PS2 to adapter with like a Atmega 8, I think. I didn't want to bother doing that. I just wanted to do it as simple as possible, so I just converted the mouse directly. Yeah, so anyway, that works quite well. Like I said, the cable is the thinnest I could get. So unfortunately it's unshielded, but it seems to be no issue here. But anyway, inside the mouse, it's a fairly typical basic mouse there. Obviously has a ball. It's an old style one. Some optical mice do push out the it's called the quadrature encoding, I think, for the 4 signals for the X and Y axes. But I didn't want to look at my chances for that, and besides I didn't have any optical mice with 3 buttons anyway, so this was the electrically the easiest, and like I said, 3 buttons is the most suitable. So I'll just go and have a look and see what's in here, what I've done. So the back comes off fairly easily, and there we go, we've got the circuit board there. So buried under these wires there's the 7.4 HCT 1.4. That's the surface mount version. I did everything here surface mount because it was easier to fit everything in. We can see we got the infrared transmitters and receivers there for these wheels that are driven by the ball. Obviously there's a resistor for the IR LEDs, transmitters, whatever. And those just run in series off that single resistor. The original Acorn mouse design actually had like a constant current LED driver with a transistor and everything, but these are obviously more modern and they can just get away with a resistor, I guess. And we got 3 buttons. And yeah, so just sort of put that on there. It just sits on top of that board. There's nothing on the bottom side of the board I made on the bottom side of the original board. We've got these 2 wire links I had to add to get ground over because the buttons. I had to cut the trace here because these buttons normally in the original design would be connected to 5 volts, which is on this whole track here, whereas in the Acorn style design that needs to be common to ground. So I had to cut the track there and then add an extra jumper there to connect that to ground. And yeah, I mean it's all pretty simple. I drew up a schematic in that, which I'll link in. But yeah, it's quite a simple thing. So basically you could convert theoretically any ball mouse to work with this style of computer. I think Amiga and maybe some other ones also used the same encoding scheme where you just directly take the encoder signals and feed it out through a bunch of wires. Just getting the 9-core cable or something is kind of the annoying part, but yeah, probably the PS2 or USB to Acorn, whatever, adapters like other people have made on the internet, probably a better option in terms of ease of use and less modification. It means you can plug in any mouse you want. But yeah, like I said, I thought this approach was just nicer, and it's not like I was going to use this mouse for anything else anyway. So here we go. It's a bit of better view of the system here. You can see the whole boot sequence there. Yeah, I mean it's a pretty simple sort of thing, and that's everything there. So if we go look on this hard drive, we can see and look at some of the things. Like I said, there's not much to look at, to be honest. But we do have this solitaire game, which works quite well. Yeah, pretty simple, sort of basic thing as you'd expect. It works well enough. And you can watch me playing this if you're so inclined. Not sure there's really much point though. Let's see if I can win. Can I win? Hopefully I can win. Let's see, that's 3 can go there. And that's 4. 4. What else we got? Hmm. 6, 5. Actually, if I get rid of that, put this one there. There we go. I got a I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see. 4. It's not looking too good, is it? Oh no, hang on. Well, put that there, but I need a jack. I need a jack here. It's not looking good. Or is it? Maybe it is looking good. No, I think, see, we're going to have this jack is going to be under there, isn't it? Yeah. So that's no good unless I can take these down, but I don't know. Maybe we get lucky. Let's see. I don't know, maybe. Wow. 7, what am I talking about? This is going to work. This is going to work, I think. 7, 8, yeah, hang on. This might actually work. Kick that 9. Yeah. There we go. Okay, right mouse button does automatic. Excellent. Yay! Now what? It doesn't say I won. That's a bit weird. Seriously? I haven't won, but I've done everything? Have I missed something here? Deal hand? Just... oh, okay, you have to redeal before it tells you won. Huh. How very odd. Oh well, that was fun. Anyway, there you go. That's that. That's solitaire on an Acorn A3020, and hopefully I'll be able to come back and show something a bit more interesting later on when I get some actual other programs running on it. Anyway, yeah, there we go. So I'll just bring this around here. Let's see. Oops. Yeah. See if that's back in shot. This should be back in shot. I don't know how well that is in shot, but it's probably in shot enough to say yes. There we go. That's the mouse that I've converted to use on here, and as you can see, it works very nicely. And this computer also works quite well as too, it would appear. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to upgrade the RAM in this, replace the BIOS battery, and yeah, load some games and stuff on it and play around. So that should be fun. So anyway, I'll attach, like I said, I'll attach the schematic for this, and the design files and stuff on the website there that I've got. Dodgy little website, but hey, it works. Yeah, so there you go. And if anyone wants to do that themselves, it's not very difficult. It's quite a simple sort of thing. Very simple circuitry. I guess the trick really is just getting the thing physically into the mouse and wiring it all up and getting it in there. I mean, this one is actually quite roomy inside, but I don't know about others. Smaller ones might not fit as well. I mean, this obviously is, well, you wouldn't be able to use this because it's a wireless thing and far too modern, I expect. But yeah, anyway, it will also be quite small inside, but there you go. It all depends on what you've got, but hey, should work. So yeah, hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully if anyone else is interested in doing this and playing around with these old computers, Acorns, Amigas, Commodores, whatever, that have old style of mice, some of these might be convertible for those. This thing does actually have an RS-232 serial port in the back, so apparently you can plug in a normal serial mouse and use that. The only problem with that is you need to load a separate driver for it, because it's not designed to use that kind of mouse by default. And of course, to load the driver you need a mouse. So I thought about going that route, but it would have been impossible, I guess, to actually do so. Just made more sense to convert this one. So there we go. That's what I've done. So hopefully that's useful. Hopefully it was enjoyable, and I'll see you next time.